With no further ado, let me just have a quick introduction of Pastor Jonathan Connor. I was first introduced to him a number of years ago when I heard him on Issues, Etc., and he was on there quite frequently, and it was entitled Kids Have Questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and how many of those have you done now?
Oh, we're getting close to 60, I think.
60, yeah, and it's just, I mean, if you want to listen to something that's really, really good on answering questions, a lot of it is apologetics, a lot of it is just defending the truth of Christianity, a lot of it is just explaining a good Christian doctrine, and these kids have excellent questions, and he does an excellent job of answering these questions as well, too. And you have one book right now on that subject, and anyway, he's been here 2 other times, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. And when I heard him speak on issues, and then I found out he was coming here to speak, Ryan McPherson invited him to speak. He did a great job. And so we're very pleased to have him here for our first presentation this evening on artificial intelligence. Please welcome Pastor Jonathan Connor.
Thank you very much. It is a joy to be with you. It's my 3rd time being here at Bethany. Always love being here. It's a privilege to share with you this evening. So you have my bio in front of you. You can read that if you're, if you're bored, you can read that. But I won't spend much time talking about me because I want to spend as much time talking about artificial intelligence. And when we start talking about artificial intelligence, it is everywhere. You already know this, right? Things like Alexa, or if you make a customer service call today, you probably are going to get AI first. Amazon now has Rufus. Maybe you've dealt with Rufus on Amazon. Maybe you've heard of Gauth, G-A-U-T-H, helps with math, may do your math homework for you. You're familiar with ChatGPT and Claude and Grok and Gemini. You are familiar with generating images and videos and even music. I just had my first time experience. I was doing a committal service, and I had finished the committal service and stepped away, and the family had arranged with the directors. There was one of the grandsons had an AI generated song to dedicate to his grandfather, and they played that there at the graveside. First time I've had that experience. You know, you can make character bots. They have ready-made character bots. You can make your own character bots. And I will tell you, especially those of you who are pastors, get ready, because the next thing in the funeral industry is an AI-generated bot of your deceased loved one that you will be able to interact with and have conversations with. It already exists in the technology. It's just going to have to be promoted and sold, and it will be. So be ready for that. AI's bots will do life coaching. You recognize, you know that they do facial recognition. They give financial advice. They actually do financial investing. They will flag financial fraud. They will do real-time translation. They can do voice cloning, video cloning. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And the question is that exciting or is it terrifying? Or is it both? Will AI help humans flourish or take over the world? Is it good? Is it evil? Is it just a super powerful tool? How should Christians think about AI? Right? Should we eagerly embrace it or adamantly reject it? Or is there some kind of middle way we need to navigate? And I will tell you up front, simplistic answers aren't going to cut it. They don't work. This is not a simplistic issue. So in order to clear and chart a thoughtful and wise path forward, we are going to need to establish a robust conceptual framework. Okay, in order to respond to these multifaceted realities of AI. But before we assemble our framework, we need to understand as best as we're able what we're talking about when we talk about AI. So IBM, and there are lots of different definitions for AI. I'm just going to go with IBM's definition for now. They defined AI as, quote, technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. Close quote. Now, the key word here I want to focus on is the word simulate. okay? AI only mimics those human qualities. Now, it does it really well, but it's mimicking. Now, in order to do this, it needs, really an inconceivable amount of information. Just inconceivable. So you know ChatGPT, we'll just call it Chat, and Claude and Grok and so forth, Gemini. So you know these are called large language models, right? LLMs. But as I mentioned before, that's just one little tiny piece of what's AI today, but it's probably the one that most of you interact with the most. All right, so we're going to just stick to that sort of area of conversation, but we're going to recognize AI covers the gamut of all different industry-specific types of AI and so forth, but we're going to focus on what most of you probably interact with. If you're a pastor, what most of the people in your pews are interacting with, these LLMs, all right? So, these incredibly powerful AIs, or LLMs, have been trained, just on a mind-bogglingly large amount of text, like books and articles, images, like artwork and photos and videos. It truly is remarkable, the amount of information that they have been trained on. Someone once said it's nearly equivalent to all the English literature ever written. That's the size we're talking of what these things have been trained on. So it's just mind-bogglingly large. Here's the way I want us to think about it. Okay, now I'm going to say the internet, but these bots haven't been trained on the entire internet, but on curated portions of it. But for simplistic purposes, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to say that these AI bots have been placed into a box, okay? And we're going to call it the internet, or curated portions of the internet. And in that box, you have all kinds of unsorted texts and images and videos. And AI is this incredibly powerful sorting, processing, and pattern recognition tool that gets placed into the box to analyze and to recognize the patterns in these words and images. So you can think of it basically as a hungry, hungry hippo, all right? It's been placed in the box, it's programmed to devour as much data as possible. So, okay, it goes in the box, it's the sorting program, and then what it's going to do is, based on probability, it can quantify, organize, and I'm going to say make predictions, but I'm using that in air quotes, okay? Not in this true sense of make predictions, but based on pattern recognition, what's the most likely next token, the most likely next thing in this string of words. In this case, we're talking words, but it would also apply for building images and so forth. So when you ask Chat a question, or you tell it to produce something for you, it scours its box and it devours all the relevant information it can find. So it goes hungry, hungry hippo on it. And then what it does is it regurgitates it in the most probable arrangement based upon the vast amount of information it has consumed. Now, we might call this computational intelligence, but it is not human intelligence. It is not sentience. It is not consciousness. It often looks like it, but that's a mirage. Because remember, AI, it simulates human intelligence. And it's really good at looking like it, but it's simulating. People sometimes use the word agentic. You're going to hear that word with AI. Agentic, so having the properties of a thinking agent. And I think it's fairly obvious why they would use a word like that to describe it, because it appears to be making independent decisions, right? Like adjusting your route on GPS, or analyzing the markets for you, making investment decisions, remembering your conversations as a friend. But AI does not actually possess agency, not in a human sense. AI doesn't have intentions, it doesn't have desires, it doesn't have self-directed goals. It doesn't lie awake at night dreaming about its future. Well, earlier we had the honor choir here. AI is not going to listen to that and have goosebumps. It won't. Okay? It is driven by these programmed algorithms or neural networks. And even advanced AI systems that make autonomous decisions are still acting within the bounds of human-defined rules and objectives. All right? So let's talk about just a couple examples here to make this point. So back in 1997, IBM developed a type of AI called Deep Blue. They named it Deep Blue. And this was all the news. Some of you were around then, and you remember perhaps when AI defeated the world champion in chess, Garry Kasparov. This is a big deal, all right? AI, the machine, beat the world champion. Now, here's my question. What did Deep Blue do to celebrate? Did Deep Blue take Deep Pink out for supper? Of course not. It doesn't care. It doesn't know. It's just a program. Or go to back in 2016, so just 10 years ago now. DeepMind came out with AlphaGo. It was trained on neural networks, so another iteration of AI. And it defeated the world's greatest player in Go. Now, I've never played Go, but for what I understand, there are more potential moves in that game than known atoms in the universe. Okay, so super complex game. So Lee Sedol, he was the world champion, and DeepMind had this famous move. It was in game 2, move 37. And the human experts who are watching this, they couldn't figure out why the AlphaGo did this, but it proved to be decisive in AlphaGo's victory. And it showed that AlphaGo was discovering new ways to play the game. But my question is, do you think AlphaGo took BetaGo out to supper to celebrate? No. It's a computer program. All right? It seems agentic, but that's just an image. It's imitating, it's mimicking. It only looks like it. Okay? It doesn't have the inner life. The motivations, the moral sense, the subjective awareness that underpins real agency. Dr. Angus Manouge, he's a professor at Concordia University, Wisconsin, has written just a fantastic book, by the way. Well, he was a contributor and editor for Minding the Brain. Oh, this is a thoughtful book. I would encourage you to pick that one up. Nonetheless, Dr. Manouge, he says this: human beings do, but machines do not have meta-insight. By meta-insight, I mean an independent knowledge of what one is doing. And then he adds this: LLMs can recombine the products of human creativity in amazing ways, producing mostly reasonable text, appealing art, and music, but their output is parasitic on past patterns in their training history or reinforcement. What they cannot do is find a possible item that is not derivative of items already instantiated in the actual world, a truly novel invention, theory, or work of art. In other words, AI cannot think outside its box. It can't. To learn, AI must have information added into its really big box. It is really good at devouring and regurgitating and recombining the contents inside its box, but AI knows nothing about anything outside its box. AI is a mindless, soulless, super tool driven by probabilities that operates in the internet box or whatever content box its creators choose. The power and reach of this super tool in our lives demands a wise human response. Humans, you and me, as insouled, infleshed, living minds, conscious of our consciousness, possessing meta-insight, we have been given a sacred stewardship from God to order and manage all of creation, and this includes AI. So managing creation well, especially AI, requires wisdom. And this wisdom must come from beyond the box, even from beyond us, from God himself. Now, where does God communicate wisdom to his creatures? Obviously, his word, right? In his word, we will discover the necessary framework to wade through the complex questions that AI is raising. So we might call this framework, I like to call it the good of God. Now, in one sense, this framework that we're going to use to evaluate AI is no different than the framework we would use to evaluate every technology and life decision. Here's what we do. We thoughtfully and we relentlessly ask this question: what has God called good? What has God called good? And then we say, how does this thing we're considering, how does it align with God's good? So when we consider specific applications of AI, we're going to utilize this framework to discern whether God has called this good, or what he's called good, and then whether this AI that we're considering, does it align with it? All right, so let's just review this for a second and see how this works. Let's ask, well, what has God called good? Well, you know God answers this question in the very first verses of the book of Genesis, right? Repeatedly, the Bible says it was good, right? Okay, so what do we see there? Okay, we see God ordering creation for life, giving everything a home, putting like with like. So we understand that order must be something God considers good. We see God creating embodied, ensouled humans in his image. And these are not generic humans, right? Scripture is clear. Male and female, he created them. So that means sexed embodiment must be pretty important to God. And then God brings this male and this female together in this one flesh union. He blesses them with the potential to procreate. So we learn male and female marriage is good. Babies are good. Families are good. And God gives dominion to his human creatures, a dominion that does good when it mirrors God's dominion, bringing order and beauty out of chaos. And then supporting, the good of marriage and family, all right? In the creation narrative, though, we also see God fellowshipping with his human creatures. So fellowship with God is good. In the Ten Commandments, we see God defending the good. I like to think of God digging a moat of protection around the castles of our life, all right? We learn that God himself is the ultimate good. We also learn that God's name is good, that worshiping him is good. We learn that parents and parental figures, life, sex, property, reputation, these are good when ordered as God has ordained them. Vocations are God-giving stations in life, which we live out these goods. These are good. And in the church, God gives us his word and his sacraments. And these are most certainly good. And what I love about this, if you notice, these goods have all been given to us in 3 dimensions. I think that's key to human flourishing. Flourishing in the 3 dimensions that God has placed us in and fit us for. So as we bring wisdom to AI, we have to keep these 3-dimensional goods of God in mind. So that's our framework. What is God called good? And does AI, or whatever we're considering, does it align with it? When it does, great, we can celebrate it, we can embrace it. Where it doesn't, we either need to distance ourselves, reject it, or we need to redirect it so it does align with what God calls good. Right? So that's our framework we're going to use as we consider this. And one more thing. This is super important to appreciate, all right? I hear this a lot from people. Well, it's just a neutral tool. I want us to understand that no tool is neutral. No tool is neutral. Right? I'm not saying a tool is bad. I'm just saying we have to understand no tool is neutral, right? So, and this is not even a matter with AI of like the ethical fingerprint of a tool's creator or of the bias that is often demonstrated in the creating or the training of a specific tool of AI, or even of a matter of which government or corporation or actors are using AI to collect whose data, that sort of thing. Those are important questions, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. What I want us to recognize is that tools change the way we see the world. They change what we believe is possible and what we believe is reasonable. Tools also change the way we tell truth. All right, if you don't believe that tools are not neutral, give a hammer to a toddler. What does everything become? A nail. Absolutely. It changes the way they see the world. Think with me just through a little bit of our lived experience. Railroads and time. Railroads changed the way we viewed time as a nation. It expedited the time zones because you want your train to leave and arrive on time. Air conditioning and houses. With the advent of air conditioning, houses changed. Activities moved from a very large porch to a very large gathering area indoors, which turned us away from our neighbors. I'm not saying air conditioning is bad. I like air conditioning. I'm saying it's not neutral. Microwaves and food, and our assumptions about what food preparation should look like and how long it should take. Microwaves changed that. Television and social media, they have affected how we understand time and relationships. So the record of history shows that our tools change us and our society. And AI is no different here. Because AI is going to make what now seems unimaginable possible. And that will change us. So wisdom says we should ask how. Whether AI aligns with our framework of what God has called good. Now, AI might free us from monotonous routines so we can prioritize human creativity or empathy. It could free us to pursue great good, like meaningful conversations with family and friends, time to volunteer at our church and our communities, opportunity to extend mercy to those in need. It could do that. It could also open up very dark avenues to sin, new kinds of addiction, new kinds of self-destruction, new kinds of community disintegration. AI could change us from critical thinkers to mere prompt writers. Someone called it once just prompt jockeys, reducing us to prompt jockeys. AI could change the way we understand friendship and relationships. We could begin to treat AI as a god or a demon that we turn to for guidance or spiritual insight, fearing, loving, and trusting in it before Jesus. And I know it's already happening. You already have AI Jesuses. There are already people submitting prayer requests to their AIs. This is already happening. AI can be used in war. I've already read about it in Ukraine. They're syncing their drones together so that one pilot can fly multiple drones at the same time. How long before we scale up from a half dozen to 1,000? AI is being explored in agriculture. aiming at reducing the need for pesticides and to make water usage and management more efficient. They're even working on developing tiny insect-sized drones to monitor plants and attack pests. AI is going to change our world, and it is changing our world. So, the Christian response to AI is to turn earnestly and relentlessly to Scripture's framework to discern what God has called good, to align our lives with it, and to evaluate AI and everything accordingly. Basically, what I'm talking about here is practicing wisdom, all right? And I'm going to tell you, this is going to take work, a lot of work, and trust in Jesus, all right? And I'm going to tell you, this is not going to be a simple, settled matter because we are going to run up against competing goods. You do this all the time in life, but AI is really going to supercharge this. Okay, so for example, I had the opportunity to listen to several high school speech events. I have kids in speech, and I'm listening to different kids give their high school speeches. And I can't tell you how many speeches I heard. It was very trendy this year to hear speeches on the evils of AI and the water usage that they require to cool their data centers, right? All true in terms of the amount of water that they're using and the potential impacts on our environment and so forth. All has truth to it, all right? But those very same AIs are being used to discover new ways to save water and resources. Well, now what do? Those are competing goods. Do you see? There's not a simple answer. Those are competing goods. So wise interactions with AI will require us to return to Scripture, right? And this ongoing conversation in the church as we continually bring wisdom to bear on all the technologies and tools of our age. This is why I'm so appreciative for what you're doing here. You are having the conversation. This shouldn't be a one-time conversation. We're going to be needing to have this conversation continually, all right? So, I want to look at just a couple, maybe specific ways we might encounter AI in our world and ask a few questions, struggle with some of the competing goods, all right? So let's talk about AI and research, so doing research with AI. You're all very familiar with Google, all right? So when you go to, not Gemini, just Google the search engine, all right? So old school now, all right? It's crazy to call it Google old school, but nonetheless, the old school way, you go to Google, you type in your search, it gives you a bajillion websites. You have to go through those, search them yourself, sort them yourself, and synthesize the information yourself, all right? It's giving you all the websites on the planet that has that word in it that you've searched for, but you have to go through it. So now LLMs, it does all that for you, right? It searches all those websites, it sorts the information, and it will synthesize it for you and does it crazy fast. So this is the ultimate easy button, all right? Now here's the question. Is this good? Now, if we had all night, I would love just to have this conversation open up a little bit more. When we have our panel conversation, please feel free to ask some questions. But for now, I just want you to, in your mind, think through this. Is this good? And hopefully you feel torn, and you should. Okay? Is there a place for easy? Well, how many of you rode horses and buggies here tonight? No one? You probably came in your pickup, your SUV, or your car. Why? Because it's a lot easier than horses and buggies, isn't it? And how many of you use microwaves in your house? I'm betting most of you. Maybe a few of you is like, I don't have it, that's fine. But most of us use that most of the time rather than our stove or oven. Why? Because it's a whole lot easier. When you balance your checking account, how many of you use a calculator to add up the numbers rather than a pen and paper? Why do you do that? Oh, it's a lot easier. How many of you use washing machines rather than the old washboard? Probably everyone in this room. Why? Because it's a whole lot easier, right? Well, here's the question. Is this new easy button any different? Okay, so we have embraced other easy buttons in our life. We do that, why? Aren't we trying to prioritize other aspects of our vocations, right? Such as time with friends and family, or time to learn a life skill, or to create something meaningful, maybe so we have time to make a home-cooked meal, maybe to read a book, maybe to even enjoy music or make a new music composition. Right? So it is no coincidence that as easy buttons have proliferated, human creativity has been set free in new areas. So if you had to heat your house in the wintertime with wood and cook your food over a wood-fired oven, we probably wouldn't have as much time for scientific research or creativity, right? Maybe some, but not nearly as much. All right, so can there be a similar place for some of the time-saving uses of AI in research? Now, it is true that the time saved could be used to prioritize things in our vocations, time with family, serving our neighbor, volunteering at church. But could it come at a cost? Yeah, right? So just consider the microwave for a minute. It saved us time. Yeah, absolutely, it saved us time. But has there been a cost? Think about it. Has it affected our ability to cook? Yeah. Has it affected our understanding of food and health? Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So just a little bit of sober reflection might lead us to conclude that the time saved through the microwave hasn't necessarily made us healthier and wiser when it comes to food. So in many ways, I think we can all agree it has cheapened food and the fellowship that traditionally happened around it. So when it comes to research, AI makes this incredibly easy. But recent evidence is showing that our new easy button also is coming at a cost. So the Wall Street Journal, which by the way, the Wall Street Journal is a great place to go for kind of ongoing reporting on AI. I mean, just about every single day, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal on AI. Just about every day. It's very thoughtful. Okay, so in terms of like a regular update of what's going on in the AI world, Wall Street Journal is a great place to go. June 2025, they had a special report on AI and learning. And they were comparing the old school Google and the LLMs. So Google, like I mentioned, requires us, in this case we're looking at students, it was requiring students to open multiple websites and do the work of synthesizing the information by themselves. Chat did the synthesizing for them. So the journal cites one researcher, and here's what he said. Students who use AI tools to complete assignments tend to do better on homework, but worse on tests. Then he added this. They're getting the right answers, but they're not learning. And then he warns, if we don't teach younger people how to synthesize and interpret information themselves, we risk de-skilling, so taking away the skill, de-skilling the ability to learn deeply at all. That's a profound insight. David Burgess, he's Associate Dean at Crowell School of Business at Biola University. He's the director of their artificial intelligence lab. He observes this. We need to make sure that there's friction in our lives. AI has the potential to try to reduce as much friction as possible so that you're living a friction-free life. But in that case, you're not learning. You're not engaging, you're not growing or maturing. So wisdom requires us to ask this question. What's the goal of research? What's the goal? Is it to learn or simply to gather information? If it's to learn, LLMs like chat might not be the best tool. That easy button, it might actually be preventing learning. Now, if the goal is simply to gather information, LLMs are great for that, all right? But this raises all kinds of other interesting questions. So when that hungry hippo pillages the internet and reassembles text according to probability, AI often reassembles falsehoods. Now, grammatically correct falsehoods, but falsehoods nonetheless. Oftentimes non-existent articles that it will cite and non-existent books. Some of them are propaganda created by AI bots. So you are aware of this, that an increasing amount of information on the internet has been generated by AI. And much of it's just patently false. In fact, you have rogue actors who are utilizing AI to generate, at alarming rates, propaganda that they just fill as much of the internet as they can. Now, these AI programmers, like for chat, they do their best to craft algorithms to catch the propaganda, but at least one article I read said they miss up to 30% of it. It's unrealistic to think that these algorithms can catch it all. So it may be that when we're interacting with chat, we're going to generate a logical, grammatically correct mix of truth and propaganda. So wisdom will teach us that easy doesn't necessarily equal true. Truth, like a home-cooked meal, often takes longer to master, but both are worth it. When it comes to research, AI is most helpful for those, and this is key, it's most helpful for those who bring knowledge to their queries. So those who come to it with a working knowledge of the subject that they're researching. That's key. You got to come to this thing understanding what you're dealing with before you just start asking it to teach you or to catechize you, to use a Lutheran term. All right? All right. So, critical point. We must bring competence to AI. Wisdom must precede it. If you don't bring wisdom to AI, it will make you the fool. And I will tell you, developing wisdom is a slow, arduous process. It requires prolonged thought. It's what the poets have called the quiet eye, cognitive patience, synthesizing information from diverse perspectives, filtering those through a biblical worldview, and arriving at a place of discernment and understanding. Now, AI can quickly collect information into one place, and it can expedite the research process, but learning can't be rushed. Learning is done best in slow mode. AI can provide a quick assist, just like using the microwave for a quick assist when you're preparing a home-cooked meal. It can be used in that capacity very effectively. But for learning, we need to use slow mode. Okay, one more iteration to consider, then we'll wrap up. AI and content generation. I specifically use the word generation, not creation. These are different things. AI generates, it doesn't create. But I want to read something to you. From silent code of voices spun, it writes and paints, outshines the sun. A spark of thought without a soul, a mirror, not a mind, made whole. That was generated by AI. All right, now, I asked Chat to write a short poem about AI's amazing ability to generate content, and that's what it produced. Now, I will set aside the temptation to psychoanalyze Chat. silent code outshining the sun, That's really humble. Thinking without a soul. A mirror, not a mind, generating content. That's disturbing. So, this power is affecting us. You already know, and those of you who are students, you know that students will use AI sometimes to generate their papers or to complete their homework. Those of you who are professionals, you know that sometimes professionals also take shortcuts and use AI to generate content and present it as their own. Obviously, that's a line we as Christians should not cross, right? Having AI do your homework isn't too different from having your friend do your homework, other than the fact that at least your friend has a soul and a mind, all right? But either way, we aren't doing it. And if you're turning in a paper or homework or a report with your name on it, that's lying. It also raises the question of stealing because AI has devoured countless unnamed documents, original pieces. Many of them have been paywalled. They've offered no credit, no remuneration to the authors. Right? It raises that question. So to evaluate this powerful tool, we have to remember our framework for wise living, right? What God considers good. That has to be the question. I will tell you this is also affecting pastors. And this is being marketed to pastors pretty intensely. AI will generate your sermon. Obviously, you know that. And most pastors are resisting this, and they should, obviously. But AI can generate sections of your sermon, maybe just a few sentences. Maybe just a few great turns of phrases for you. Or maybe some really good illustrations. It can do that for you. What do you think about that? AI can generate Bible studies and discussion questions and outlines based upon the pastor's sermons or his prompts. Right? Yeah, I can take my sermon manuscript, put it in the AI, and say, create a 30-minute Bible study with small group questions that I can distribute or lead, base it on my sermon, and have it so I can format it in such a way that it's easy to follow. It'll do that. No problem. It'll generate articles. It'll take my sermon and it will spin out however many I want. Say I preached my sermon. I want you to spit out an article for Monday, Wednesday, Friday that I can distribute to my congregation and make it based upon the same theme I preached on. Produce articles so that I can maximize my reach. That's how it's marketed. Expand the reach of the gospel. All right? It can voice clone the pastor and produce my sermon in my voice in a different language. It can generate a podcast with two incredibly human-sounding, talking bots discussing the ideas communicated in the sermon and just being so impressed with how brilliant the pastor is. Oh, I've tested it. I sounded like the most brilliant pastor ever. And I'm like, these bots, they know what they're talking about. But what if I gave that to my congregation? Now they're being influenced by bots. Those aren't people. Those are bots. So wisdom is going to require us to wade through each of these questions individually. So where does AI help us prioritize God's good, and where does it undermine it? Right? Where does it serve the proclamation of the gospel? Where does it change it? Where does it help the incarnational nature of pastoral ministry? And where does it hinder it? When it comes to sermons and papers, look, AI can check for grammatical errors. That's great. I mean, it's already built into Microsoft Word, right? In fact, Microsoft Word even has it'll generate stuff for you as well. AI can check for cultural insensitivities. It will check for unhelpful buzzwords. In other words, you can say, do I have buzzwords I use a lot or certain idioms that I use too much? Flag those for me so I don't say the same thing over and over again. Like if I like to say like the word, that's really cool, and I say that 14 times, tell me that so I don't say the same thing over and over again. It'll point out ill-formed thoughts. It'll talk about some logical errors in your argument. It can suggest improvements for improving the flow or consistency. It can generate an outline or a concise summary of a paper for you. It can offer language assistance, biblical language assistance, and biblical commentary in line with the confessional tradition you specify. AI can generate policy statements or convention overtures. Now, you just finished a convention. If you've ever written a convention overture, I'd rather have all my teeth pulled than write one of those things. That is not something that appeals to me, but it'll produce it for you. Right? So these are all things we have to talk about. Where is it okay? Where is it not okay? Is there a gray area? How do we think through this? All right? So when we consider the questions and the potentialities of this powerful tool, we're going to bring our wisdom to bear, right? Wisdom that comes from beyond us, right? From God's word. We're going to return again and again and again to the good of God. And where AI in content generation helps us prioritize the good of God, we might consider this is a good use. And where it undermines it, we say this is a bad use. But I can assure you that most of the time, it will not be that simple. Most of the time, you're going to come up against competing goods. Right? Just like some of the things I mentioned. Let me just put you in the life of a busy pastor for a minute. I need to have a Bible study ready to go by 3 o'clock. Let's say it's Friday, and I have a 3 o'clock Bible study I need to be able to lead, but I've got sick parishioners I need to get to. I'm not going to get a chance to write that Bible study at all today, and I need to go visit them. I can upload my sermon and say, produce a Bible study based on that so it's ready to go. So when I go to my Bible study, I have something to lead people in Bible study with so I can go visit my sick members. What do you think about that? It's not an easy answer, is it? There are things I don't like about it. I'm not telling you what the right answer is right now. I'm saying these are the sorts of conversations we need to be having, all right? I'm going to use another example. So you mentioned on issues. I was on issues for AI, a couple part series on AI. And a listener had called in and offered some criticism, which is perfectly legitimate. And he didn't fully understand what I was trying to argue. And I'll blame me, not him. But he was a carpenter, and he was saying that, look, if the computer has to do your job for you, you shouldn't be doing your job. In other words, you should be doing it, not the computer. On the one hand, I agree. But my question to him is, do you use power tools in carpentry? Are those tools doing your job for you? Aren't they assisting in a very powerful way? Absolutely, right? So it's not as simple as saying, don't let the computer do your job. I agree, the computer should not do my job, but what does that mean? What does that mean for all of us? Right? Those are some of the questions we have to wrestle through. I hope we get a chance to talk about some of those specific sort of questions that we are wrestling with every day. So each scenario is going to have to be considered individually and honestly. Wisdom will require patience and reflection, deep understanding of creation and our status as creatures of God, a profound understanding of the good of God and what makes for human flourishing. AI is a super tool with the power to make research super easy. Remember what I said, that could end up being to our own detriment. Easy buttons, do we all agree? Easy buttons can have their place. All right, but an easy button of this magnitude may end up doing more harm than good, allowing us to spread knowledge exceptionally wide, but preventing us from penetrating beneath the surface, making us look really smart, but keeping us from being wise. And AI's ability to generate content is presenting us with ethical dilemmas, pushing the limits of integrity. and threatening to curtail human creativity, even while it offers the potential to assist us in promoting and upholding the good of God. Competing goods. We have to bring competence to wisdom, competence and wisdom to AI, right? And we continually return to the question of what God has called good. We need to be very committed to not compromising on integrity. We need to guard against our sinful tendency toward laziness and have thoughtful conversations on where AI might assist us. So, wrapping up for our last couple minutes here. Look, AI is here. Okay, it's advancing. You don't need to be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. But we do need to bring wisdom to bear. All right? We've already talked about how we do that. We do need to bring wisdom to bear. And I simply want to say, I think Christians need to take the lead in this. We need to be involved in this conversation. Our worldview needs to be involved in this conversation. All right? And I think we need to understand that the stakes are high, but we can't sit on the sidelines. Not with a tool of this magnitude. For the sake of the world, Christians need to engage. All right, so we need to remember this. What is AI? Okay, it's a mindless, superpowered tool confined to an immense box simulating human intelligence and agency. And who are we? We are image-bearing creatures of God, called to steward His good in His creation with wisdom as we look for the coming resurrection and the renewal of all things. All right, so it's my prayer that we will do exactly that, and we will continue to have these sorts of conversations so that together we can bring wisdom to bear on this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to ask our other two presenters to come up. We'll have a panel discussion. At the same time, I'm going to invite President Gene Pfeiffer to come up from our college here to greet you and welcome you and just explain a little bit about our college here.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the campus of Bethany Lutheran College. I'm Gene Pfeiffer, blessed to serve Bethany as its president. Many of you already know quite a bit about Bethany, but some of you who may be first-time guests on campus may not have a working knowledge of Bethany. So here's just a couple things that I would want you to know about Bethany. And the thing that I would want you to know is that Bethany is abundantly blessed by our gracious God. I mean, here we are on this beautiful, expansive, well-maintained campus. At Bethany, we have a large, diverse, talented student body that's been growing, something unique in higher education. We have a very dedicated, talented, mission-fit faculty, administration, and board of regents, united in the foundation of, we approach everything at Bethany from a confessional Lutheran understanding of Scripture, and that's our foundation. But most importantly, the best thing I would say about Bethany is that now for 99 academic years, and now approaching our 100th year, this coming school year, at Bethany, we have remained steadfast in our Christ-centered Christian higher education mission and in our twofold purpose. That is, at Bethany, we seek to engage each and every one of our students with their Savior Jesus, and then to equip them with that confessional Lutheran understanding of Scripture and from a liberal arts approach to equip our students for productive and fulfilling lives. If you would like to know a little bit more about Bethany and its confessional Lutheran liberal arts approach, there is a brochure in your folder. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David Thompson and David is one of Bethany's Board of Regents, so it's a pleasure to collaborate with you, David.
Thank you. Thank you, President Pfeiffer, so much for leading our college here. And it's a wonderful institution, as many of you know, because many of you here are alumni of Bethany. But let's go on with our panel discussion now. We thank Pastor Connor for his presentation, and there's going to be a number of questions. But I would like to throw at them, especially Pastor Connor, some questions. But I'm hoping that our other presenters here, Adam Brasich and Brandon Steenbach, will have some keen insights and questions themselves regarding the presentation by Pastor Connor. I hope also that we might have some disagreement, because AI is so new and it's moving so fast, it's next to impossible for us to comprehend it as well as we should and approach it with as much wisdom as we should so quickly. As you say, wisdom takes time. So, first of all, I would just like to ask our other two presenters if they have any comments regarding what they just heard.
Yeah, first of all, Jonathan, thank you so much for your presentation. Is it close? Are we working? Okay, stay close, he says. All right. Thank you for your presentation. I wrote copious notes. I really appreciated how you made the concept of AI simple. And I've been studying it for a few years myself, and yet there are still always things to learn, and I really valued some of your things. I loved how you talked about the tool analogies and how things sometimes are not neutral. I've often said you can dig a hole with a sword and you can kill a man with a shovel, but we know which tool is made for which thing. But I think it also matters who is making and who is using the tool, right? The CEO of Anthropic, Dario, and I'm going to get his name wrong, Amodei? Okay, yeah. He said at one point that the AI wants to learn, and we need to teach it. And I wonder what you think about this, that if Christians avoid the AI space, then the AI is only learning from the non-Christians. Can you say something about that?
I completely agree. I would go back to his comment, though, that AI wants. See, I think that right there is already misleading, because it's really hard not to slip into that, to anthropomorphize AI or to humanize AI. And I do find it ironic that we tend to humanize our machines and dehumanize our unborn. But it's very hard not to use words like, oh yeah, what's happening in our culture lots now is we are humanizing our machines and dehumanizing the unborn, or even our disabled or aged or so forth. They're very much dehumanized. But so right away when I hear him say AI wants, I already have red flags going, oh, AI is programmed, but to have AI want anything is just like going back to saying AI want, like AlphaGo wants to take BetaGo out to supper. That's a nonsensical statement. But I most heartedly agree with you that we want the training material that our AI is being trained on. We want our stuff. We got a robust worldview. We want it trained on that. So I absolutely agree. We need to be in that space. And we do have a lot of Christians in that space, and I'm encouraged by that.
Yep, and thank you, Pastor Connor, for that very enlightening discussion, kind of a 101 introduction to AI. Definitely helpful for me in thinking about, particularly from a higher education perspective, but then also from a church perspective. Okay, so we have AI, it's here. How are we going to react to it without being overly reactionary? So my question to you was in terms of technology. So Lutherans kind of have a very interesting love-hate relationship with technology. And so a lot of times when we tend to think about technology, at least I do as a pastor, is going to be within the context of the congregation. So do we have screens or do we not have screens? Do we use the hymnal, which is itself a form of technology, or do we have the bulletin, a different form of technology? We can think about the way that some of us were baptized by fire into technology in the sanctuary in 2020 with COVID. And then live streaming, how has live streaming changed congregational life, how we engage with members and evangelism and sharing the gospel throughout our communities in the world. And then also some of the poor things that came out of that, such as quote unquote internet communion. And so when we think about artificial intelligence, what is there within Lutheran reaction to technology that we can take from lessons from the past and to bring it to the present with artificial intelligence?
Great question. I think what I want to start with is this acknowledgement, because what you're tapping into, I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm in the parish. I'm right there with you. I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of technology, right? So I'm right there with you. But I think one thing we need to bring to technology is always this acknowledgement. Actually, Thomas Sowell said it in regards to economics, but it applies here. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. Okay, so you talked about, the screen, the hymnals, the bulletins, the printing the bulletins. Which one is the right one? I don't know if there's a simple answer to that. I think we just have to be sober enough to say, if I choose this one, I'm trading, here's the trade-off. I think those are the questions we need to be asking when it comes to all the different AI iterations or technology platforms. I think we tend to sometimes be very reactionary, like you said, and we want to, and I know why we do it, because it's a whole lot easier to paint with a very, like monochromatic, this is bad, this is good, sort of all or nothing, and that makes it easier for us to make a decision. But I don't know if that's just true to reality. I think lots of times we need to realize, okay, I'm going to choose not to use this technology because I'm not comfortable with the trade-off I have to make. But I'm not saying that technology would be all bad. There may be certain gains with it. So I think just bringing that principle to bear on any iteration, what's the trade-off? Is it a trade-off I'm willing to make? And if I am, why? And if I'm not, why? I think those are the sorts of questions to kind of sort through. Good. Should I hand this to you?
I've been thinking about, you talked about the need for learning how to learn again, and discernment and so on. And I've been thinking for a while that perhaps we're sort of returning in terms of our educational task to an older generation. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, we taught the virtues and we taught character and so on. And then we got into the Industrial Revolution, and it was, now we need to teach people how to be, how to get knowledge so they can be in a career, so they can advance a career someday. We taught them the trades and the disciplines. Do we need to go back to training the value, the virtues and character and so on? And how does that look? Do you have thoughts?
Yes, lots of them. Yes, in fact, so one of my other hats I wear is for, I'm an itinerant educator for Lutheran Family Service, no S on the end, Lutheran Family Service, based out of Iowa, but we're in multiple states, and I'm one of their educators. And I've just finished producing a 6-part series on what I've just called Doing the Faith. But what I'm after here is specifically the virtues, the habits, the rituals, the rhythms, some in ancient times we called a rule of life, right? This rhythm by which we're going to develop the habits or the rituals of the faith. So some of the books that are out there now, like James Smith, You Are What You Love, or Justin Early has The Common Rule. There are multiple ones out there. They're very thoughtful in that exact idea of, I'm going to say this carefully so you don't mishear me, because I know Lutherans sometimes we get a little uptight about this, but salvation is what Jesus does. So we're all on that page, 100%. Christianity is what we do. Like there is a call to involve your bodies and your minds, your rituals, your habits, your disciplines, whatever words you want to use. And habits aren't just things you do, they're things that do things to you. All right? So I think we desperately need to be teaching our people how to live this out in the home. I'll give you one quick example so I don't go on for the rest of the night, because I could go on for a while on this. I like to teach what I call scalable family devotions. Okay, so scalable family devotions look like scalable family devotions. So here's how this works. I know your life isn't always the same every single night. In your ideal world, you may have 45 minutes to an hour to do family devotions. Sounds so romantic, doesn't it? It sounds wonderful. Well, most of us don't live in that world. So what does it look like if I get home at 9:30 and we're all exhausted because we were at the ball game or at the speech event or at whatever, and I don't have an hour to do family devotions? Do I go to bed utterly defeated because I didn't do family devotions, or is there something I can do? So I call it, if you only have 2 minutes, you do what's called blessings and bed. Blessings in bed look like this. I go to each of my kids. Now I only have 4 in the house right now, but if I had 6, I go to each of my kids and make the sign of the cross on their forehead, and I speak a Bible verse over their head. I bless them, and I say, now go to bed, right? But now, do you think, after hearing that blessing for thousands of times, which took me, with 6 kids, a total of 2 minutes, do you think that will impact them for their life? That is a simple habit that everybody can do. Now you build from there. If I have 10 minutes, what does it look like? If I have 20 minutes, what does it look like? If I have a full half hour, what does it look like? But even if I only have 2 minutes, I want to be able to give my people a thing that they can be doing that is doing something to them. I'm 100% on board. Yep.
Your point about AI being beneficial for folks who come with knowledge and competency, I think, is very well taken. Because I think there's a very much, especially within the academic community, I mean, something that we're wrestling with, right, is what are the ethics of using AI when it comes to research? What are the ethics of AI when it comes to data compilation? And then when it starts to come to the analysis of that data, okay, so how far are we willing to go on that? Because AI does have the potential, I think, for negatively impacting intellectual production. Not just in terms of potentially the loss of academic positions, which I think is probably going to be, at some level, going to be a result of AI intruding its way into higher education. But then also, if I am reliant upon artificial intelligence to do, as a historian, in order to do archival research, and then to start to allow AI then to take the stuff that I do have and then produce it into a narrative, analysis, what have you, what am I producing? What is coming out of that? What is the ultimate product of the intellectual work that I am doing? I think it's going to be less. And your idea about knowledge versus data is kind of the way I'm going to try to frame it tomorrow in my talk, but there's a strong difference between the data that AI gives me versus the knowledge that I bring to the table and then perhaps is salted and peppered by what AI can provide. But in terms of the actual knowledge itself, I have to do the work. I have to earn what I'm going to be receiving, which in a Christian virtue perspective, right, that's going to be wisdom. But there's a hidden danger, I think, in AI in terms of not only are we going to have fewer people trying to produce knowledge, but then also there's going to be the temptation for us who are in the knowledge production business to over-rely upon this technology in order to craft it for us, and that's not knowledge. That's not wisdom.
I totally agree. There's it's a secular book. It's 10 years old now. Cal Newport wrote the book Deep Work. Okay, familiar with that? And he obviously was not really addressing the AI question. He was addressing more of the social media sort of distraction question, right? And how the addiction to distraction is the enemy of deep thought. This definitely is analogous to what you're talking about. We're not gaining knowledge. We're certainly producing a product, if you will. We're producing like you said, a narrative. But what is it doing to us? What's the trade-off? We're becoming very shallow people, and I would be very concerned about that as well.
All right, let's open it up to the audience here for a couple of questions. We're going to get we're going to go maybe 8 more minutes until about 8:40. So if you can go to the mic, and Maurice, if you want to go back there and just hand the mic to the people who come to the mic there. Maurice is my intern. He's also assisting me, so we appreciate his work. And Maurice, you can actually ask the first question if you would like, because Maurice is a good thinker. So line up there, and Maurice will help. By the way, state your name and where you're from.
Well, in my case, I'm Maurice Stückenschneider, and I'm from Germany. And my question would be, so when I heard the speech, and what went through my mind is basically the ultimate extrapolation of what you said, right? That right now in the AI space, we have certain Christians that are there, but mostly we don't. Most of the developers are not Christians, they don't have any Christian worldviews, So how would you force that kind of integration of the Christian worldview if no one in the space actually has it to begin with? Because quite frankly, we get to a point where at some point we leave it up to them to decide what happens down the line.
Well, amen. I mean, I think as pastors and educators, we have to be able to celebrate the wisdom the Christian worldview has to bring. And you talked about Doyle is retiring, and he's done great work in creation apologetics and so forth. I am sure in your classroom you were pro-science. I am 100% positive of it. Sometimes Christians get a bad rap for being anti-science, and I guarantee you Doyle was pro-science, and I bet there are people who went into the science world because you were pro-science. You're exactly right. As things stand right now, as far as I'm aware, we don't have a large influence from the Christian world. But I guess I would say that there's no reason for us not to be pro-technology, the pro-technology, and encouraging our young people, old people, everyone in between to get involved, because our worldview has something to offer. So just speak positively and encourage it and celebrate it where you see it, right? And just be pro-technology in the appropriate way.
Okay, next question.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Aiello. I'm from Frankenmuth, Michigan, St. John's. First thing, Pastor Connor, you need to try the game Go. It's quite a fun game. So try it out.
Yes.
Well, in light of this, because I'm a retired teacher, I retired last year, a lot of us are pushing basically to take, in some ways, a Luddite stance with our kids again. Because you were talking about with the AI and looking things up, and the kids, they look at the solution, like what the end goal is and not the process. Is there a place for us to say, no, you're not using computers for this class. You're going to learn how to research the way people used to research. You're going to go learn how to go to a library. You're going to learn how to look things up. You're going to learn how to read and write things in your own words, because it's so bad. Even taking AI out of it for a minute, you get these kids who they'll have things on their computers, and like I used to give these kids like a Spanish handout, and they would go home and they'd come back and say, well, I couldn't study, I had no internet. And I'd say, well, you have it right here on your paper, and they'd give me this zombie stare. So, I mean, is there a place for teachers to say, hey, maybe you should be a little bit more of a Luddite?
Yeah. I'll offer a couple quick thoughts, but I'm sure you have thoughts because you're talking about education. Yes, I would be very... Number one, sort of device for most children is
just don't cover the don't cover the antenna. You have to hold it.
Gotcha. Don't touch the bottom. All right. I'm new at technology, so yes, they tend to view devices as entertainment devices. Number two, they do lack the maturity. Many of us as adults do as well. I would think, for lots of reasons, even the way we learn, the way we read has changed when we read on screens. I am all for paper, pencil, three-dimensional books. The brain needs a sense of the pathway. It needs to exist in 3 dimensions. I mean, I'm 100% on board. I'm not saying we are like Luddites all the way through and through, but I'm saying for those early years, I think that would be important. But I'm going to hand it off because I know you have some other educational thoughts.
As many of you know, I can be a very weird person, which means that I like to get up in the morning very early, read for 2 hours, and I have the attention span in order to do that. That's a lost art. Most people, because they have been using phones, because they have been using different forms of technology, they don't have that skill the way that I think probably the 4 of us do, many of you do as well, where we can sit down and read a book, read a journal article, read whatever, and then engage with that for more than 3-4 minutes. How many young people, I can say this now that I'm approaching 38, I guess, but how many young people can balance a checkbook? Or how many young folks can get from Mankato to Waseca or up to the cities using a road atlas? There are trade-offs, like you were saying, with technology, so there's going to be good and ill to that. But I think there is going to be an advantage to, at least in the early years of formation, of taking a Luddite approach at some level, because what happens when the AI is no longer there for any number of different reasons? What happened when the technology is no longer, it has evolved to a different state? Or for what's going to happen if you don't have electricity? What's going to happen if you don't have access to your phone, your computer, what have you? So you're going to need those basic skills in terms of attention span for work, for intellectual production, for what have you, but then also arithmetic and writing and all those basic things that we were used to growing up. You need that Luddite approach. So Utah has taken an approach in terms of that there are no phones allowed in public schools. I think that's a good thing. Indiana, the other state that I have connections with, they're taking a very similar approach, and for good reason. A friend of mine who's a high school physics teacher was telling me that on his finals now, there are apps that the students can take pictures of the physics exam problem, and then it'll not only shoot out the answer, it will shoot out all the different steps. And so it looks as though they have done all the work and they got it correctly, but as we all know, they have not done the learning, they have not earned that knowledge. And so therefore, I would completely agree with you. I think there's a wisdom to the Luddite approach, up to a certain age, of course.
All right, I'm sorry, but it's 8:40 right now, and we have 5 great questions coming up from my count here, and the answers are even better, but they will be asked and answered tomorrow, which means you all have to come back. I know that some of you can't come back, but please come back if you possibly can, and we'll take more questions and more answers at that time. Let's give our presenters here a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Get a good night's rest.